When a 200-pound bomb ripped through the George and Dragon on 14 October 1940, the pub's priceless wartime archive, including 312 personal diaries, was about to be buried beneath the rubble. Flames leapt toward the oak safe where the diaries lay, while a lone firefighter in a soot-blackened Aux Fire Service uniform rushed toward it as the building shuddered. Who was that unknown hero? And why does his desperate rescue echo in history 80 years later? His name was James Whitaker, a 32-year-old volunteer who had answered the call to protect London's civilian heart just weeks after the Blitz began. Whistling wind and the clatter of anti-aircraft fire filled the night as Whitaker, equipped with a battered helmet and a rope harness, raced up the burning staircase of the pub on Brewer Street. Inside, the George and Dragon's wooden ceiling collapsed, sending a cascade of embers over the stone-flagged floor where the safe stood tall and dark. The safe was a massive oak chest, its iron bands scarred by decades of customers' toasts and wartime anecdotes. Whitaker stared at the roaring flames, aware that the safe held not just ledgers but the souls of a city. Handwritten letters from soldiers, photographs of families, and fragile gramophone records of wartime songs. He remembered the night his own brother had left for the front, the tinny melody of "Keep Fighting Together" echoing in his mind as he lifted the heavy lid. With a deep breath, Whitaker secured the rope around his chest, slipped into the choking smoke, and guided his colleague's hose onto the safe's hinges. The water spattered, then the iron bands groaned as they gave way, the lid swinging open to reveal rows of yellowing diaries. Each page had been filled with the daily struggles, hopes, and humor of Londoners awaiting the end of the Blitz. A photograph of a beaming mother holding a newborn, a scrap of graffiti reading "We'll Never Surrender," and a brittle recording of a pub quintet singing the London song were among the treasures now safe. Outside, the bomb's shockwave had shattered windows across Soho, yet Whitaker's actions bought the archive a chance to survive. He managed to bundle the diaries into a battered leather box, then carried them to the nearest fire station on Duke Street, where they were stored under blankets of sand to avoid further heat. The next morning, the George and Dragon was reduced to a gutted shell, its stone walls still standing but its interior gone. Yet the archive had been preserved, a living chronicle of civilian resilience stored safely in the Auxiliary Fire Service's archives. For decades, Whitaker's heroic effort remained untold, the diaries and recordings locked away in a government storage unit, unknown to researchers. In 2015, a team of oral historians uncovered Whitaker's story while cataloging the hidden collections of the Imperial War Museum. The diaries, photographs, and music recordings were finally digitized, giving scholars unprecedented insight into everyday life on the home front during World War II. James Whitaker, now a frail 97-year-old, was invited to the museum's exhibition, where his weathered uniform and unassuming smile captured the attention of reporters worldwide. When asked why he acted, Whitaker simply said, "We had a duty to protect what mattered to the people, even if it was just a pub." His words echoed the sentiment of thousands of unnamed volunteers whose actions stitched together the tapestry of wartime London. The exhibition featured a dedicated section titled "The Rescue of the George and Dragon," showcasing original artifacts, including the brass lantern Whitaker used that night. Visiting school groups now learn how a single act of courage can preserve a community's memory for future generations. The diaries themselves reveal poignant details: a baker's log of bread rations, a nurse's note on hospital shortages, and a soldier's doodle of a rose on the margin of a leave slip. The music recordings, crackling with age, include a live performance of a wartime drum band that played in the pub's back room to lift morale. These sounds transport listeners back to 1940, reminding us that history is not just dates and battles, but also the hum of everyday life. Whitaker's legacy was further honored when the restored George and Dragon, rebuilt after the war, opened a memorial room displaying the rescued archive. Today, Scholars cite the collection as a cornerstone for understanding the civilian experience of the Blitz, highlighting how ordinary spaces like pubs became repositories of hope. The final line of Whitaker's own diary entry from that night, written on a scrap of newspaper, reads, "If we fall, we rise. If we rise, we protect." Those words, saved from a burning pub, still reverberate through the corridors of the Imperial War Museum. And that is why, even after all these years, the story of the volunteer firefighter who saved a London pub continues to inspire. It reminds us that behind every grand narrative of war, there are unsung heroes whose quiet bravery preserves our humanity.